Hello, I'm John Roberts, and welcome to the CBS Evening News Online Edition. Just ahead, going nowhere fast. Heavy snow, icy cold, and howling winds mean many travelers may be home for Christmas only in their dreams. Plus, an inside job. The suicide bomber in the deadly attack on a U.S. military base in Iraq may have worn an Iraqi army uniform. And the FDA orders a sweeping review of prescription painkillers. It's enough to give you a headache. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News Online Edition. A huge winter storm is piling up record snow and a heap of trouble for holiday travelers hoping to be home for Christmas. The South and Midwest are taking a heavy hit today. Midwest travelers were stranded in blizzard conditions with double-digit snow and single-digit temperatures. And in parts of the South, freezing rain left highways glazed with ice. Countless thousands of people are without power tonight. The storm's track from Wyoming to Ohio and from the Texas Panhandle on up to the Great Lakes left a big trail of misery. And it's far from over. Cynthia Bowers begins our coverage.
This is a record these folks want no part of. A winter's worth of snow in a single day, stranding people and Christmas packages across wide parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio.
Just snow's just too deep, can't do it, so we're just spending the night here.
31 inches fell south of Indianapolis with snow drifts of up to 6 feet. Interstate 64 eastbound was closed for 30 miles from Evansville to the Illinois state line, making it a day this newlywed will never forget.
And we were going to try to shoot straight through to enjoy as much of Florida as we could. And now we're in Indiana in a snowstorm. Here we are. This is our honeymoon.
It wasn't just heavy snow, but a dangerous wintry recipe that shut Cincinnati down and knocked out power to roughly 300,000 Ohio homes.
Miserable doesn't even explain it. Look at this mound of snow, and it's not just snow. Inside we have a couple inches of sleet, essentially a layered cake that does not taste very good.
By comparison, a couple of inches may not seem like much, but tell that to Longhorns in Amarillo or motorists in Memphis.
All the conditions were in place for a major snowstorm, and there was a lot of cold air available for the storm, and a lot of moisture overran the cold air.
It made for a tough commute no matter what you ride, and left plenty of folks willing to share their woe, make that white Christmas.
If you want to come here and enjoy our snow, come on over.
Or come to Chicago, where it was a wind chill hovering around -10 that turned the famous mile from magnificent to miserable.
Oh, it's past cold. It's frigid. Freezing.
It's the kind of cold that rattled bones and made working outside dangerous. Unless that is you were warmed by an acetylene blowtorch and prospects of the upcoming holiday weekend.
Don't care. I'm done after today. Till Monday.
Thankfully, the snow part of the system has cleared on out, but the Arctic cold was left behind. In fact, forecasts call for it to be even colder, if you can believe it, tomorrow than it was today. And all that bitter cold is headed to the northeast, so bundle up and brace yourselves. John?
Cynthia Bowers in a frigid Chicago for us live tonight. Cynthia, thanks. 4 more U.S. troops lost their lives today in Iraq, a soldier and 3 Marines. And the U.S. military began an urgent reassessment of base security following Tuesday's attack on a crowded mess tent that left 22 dead, 18 of them Americans, and wounded dozens of others. We have 2 reports now on the attack, the investigation, and the aftermath, starting with Kimberly Dozier in Baghdad.
There were deadly clashes with militants in Fallujah today. U.S. warplanes dropped bombs on a city supposedly almost completely cleared of insurgents, and 3 Marines were killed. In Mosul, there's a sense of dread among locals as they wait for U.S. troops to crack down after Tuesday's devastating suicide attack at Camp Meres. Some suspects have already been apprehended. U.S. officials are now reviewing security procedures for every single base in Iraq, since it seems the Mosul attack was an inside job. The bombing was claimed by militant group Ansar al-Sunna, and an Iraqi worker missing from the base fits Ansar's description of the attacker. Mosul's commander, General Carter Ham, says the bomber was likely wearing an Iraqi military uniform. A top U.S. officer has been appointed to investigate how the man was screened and how he got the explosives into the base. The problem is there are Iraqis working on every coalition camp, meaning the Americans will probably have to institute draconian measures to check them coming in and keep an eye on them wherever they are. For the militants, it's a victory. By forcing the Americans to suspect every Iraqi they come across, they're further dividing the coalition from the very people it came to help and alienating more Iraqis in the process. Kimberly Dozier, CBS News, Baghdad.
I'm Sheila McVicker at the U.S. military hospital in Landstuhl, Germany, where medical staff have been treating 35 soldiers and civilians wounded in that bombing in Mosul. Nearly half of those brought here, 17, are in intensive care, critically injured. Every week, doctors see dozens of patients injured in Iraq and airlifted to this hospital. These patients are different, doctors say, the pattern of their wounds telling the tale of where they were hurt, on a military base they thought was secure.
It was obvious that they were not wearing their battle armor. I mean, people are sitting down at lunch. In this case, they were really primarily neck, chest, abdomen, and not so much extremity injury.
The hospital commander says that while many of those here are very sick, she believes that all have a reasonable chance of recovery. As quickly as these patients can be further stabilized, medical staff are shipping them out, heading for hospitals in the U.S. And for many, that means bedside reunions this holiday weekend. John?
Sheila McVicker in Germany for us tonight. In this country, federal health officials tried today to ease the concern and clear up the confusion about the safety of drugs that millions of Americans take for arthritis pain. As Wyatt Andrews reports, it's not just the patients who are worried. Even their doctors were no longer sure what advice to give and what drugs to prescribe.
It was the government's strongest warning yet, and this time it covered all of the COX-2 drugs that millions of patients use to relieve arthritis. In a formal public health advisory, the FDA said physicians should now limit prescriptions for Celebrex and Bextra because of recent studies linking them to an increased risk of heart attack and stroke. A third drug, Vioxx, is already off the market. But that wasn't all. The advisory also extended to over-the-counter pain drugs. The FDA warned patients not to take naproxen, also sold as Aleve, in amounts greater than the 440 milligram recommended dose. Even drugs like ibuprofen and aspirin, the FDA said, should not be taken for more than 10 days unless patients consult the doctor.
Celebrex, 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon.
What this means for patients and their physicians is a second look at COX-2 drugs.
It is always a clinical decision.
Dr. David Borenstein says that for patients with stomach irritation, for example, Celebrex could still be ideal.
There's some patients for which Celebrex would be the absolute worst choice, and there are other persons where the choice of Celebrex would be absolutely appropriate.
But even as the government issued this advisory, it admitted to some confusion because not every COX-2 study shows heart trouble. Significantly, the FDA did not pull Celebrex off the market. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
More stories are just a click away, but be sure to join me on television for the on-air edition of the CBS Evening News. On Friday's broadcast, internet phishing gets even fishier. Crooks after your bank account have new, more sophisticated bait to reel you in. It's our Friday Consumer Alert. For CBSNews.com, I'm John Roberts.